As physical therapists, it's imperative that we understand both how and why we utilize Maitland mobilization techniques. It's also very important to understand the grading scale behind these techniques, because each specific grade of mobilization can be used to treat a specific patient need or patient population. Now we need to understand a little bit of the background behind these mobilization techniques before we get started. First, a Maitland mobilization can be either an oscillatory motion or a sustained hold. A Maitland mobilization can be either a passive accessory technique or a passive physiological technique. And finally, Maitland mobilizations can be used to either decrease pain, increase range of motion, or of course both. So let's talk through the Maitland grades. A grade 1 technique is a small amplitude mobilization that starts at the very beginning of range. So this is a very gentle, small amplitude technique that is used primarily for pain reduction. Grade 2 mobilization is also used primarily for pain reduction because it's a high amplitude mobilization that starts at the beginning of range, goes all the way through the range, but does not yet hit that restriction. So it's still mobilizing into an empty range. So again, let's mark it off here as decreasing pain. Now I'm going to apologize to you for my handwriting because it's quite poor, but we'll just disregard that at the moment. Grade 3 mobilization is a high amplitude mobilization that's mobilized all the way to the limitation. So we're starting at the beginning of range, mobilizing toward the end of the range, but not yet mobilizing into the restriction. So since we're not mobilizing into the restriction, we're not using this technique to increase range of motion, but rather to maintain range of motion. A grade 4 mobilization is a small amplitude technique that begins at the very end of the range. So we're beginning at the limitation, mobilizing into the limitation. So this is a technique that can be used to increase range of motion. A grade 5 technique, of course, is a manipulation. It's a high velocity, low amplitude technique that begins at the very end of the range of motion, just like a grade 4, but the difference here, it's a high velocity, low amplitude thrust. So let's mark this one off here. And here we're increasing range of motion. And those are the grading, and that's a grading scale for Maitland mobilizations.